So one of the things I wanted to talk about was this claim that, if it happened, why didn't she report it? So why people don't report. And one of the things that I learned through a recent experience with a young family member of mine is that teenagers or preteens who are assaulted or molested in some way often do disclose things that we should be paying attention to. Uh-huh. One of the things that they may do is float a trial balloon to a trusted adult to see how they respond.
Yes.
Something about, I don't want to go to Uncle Joe's this weekend.
Right.
Just to see what the reaction is. And if they get a positive response, they may disclose something else. That, well, I don't like the way Uncle Joe acts around me. And if they get a positive response to that, they may disclose some other details. Sometimes they don't disclose any details unless they're directly asked. But they do often say things.
And important to add, sometimes, even if they're directly asked, they may say no.
Right.
They've been threatened.
They've been threatened.
Yes.
And sometimes, okay, there are teenagers, I've worked with clients who were groomed and seduced by much older men as teenagers. I think I have also had this experience with a few male clients. And they think of it as they're in love with this person. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about much older. I'm not talking about a few years older. I think that you would look at on a case-by-case basis. But when there's a big power imbalance, there's definitely a risk for that being a traumatizing negative experience. So sometimes it may be years later before they realize, oh, he wasn't just a jerk. That was abusive. That was really not okay.
Right.
So they may not tell because they're covering for somebody.
Yeah. And one of the things that that also I kind of recognized in this young relative of mine was that the perpetrator at trial and through police interviews and everything, one of the things he kept doing was supplying motives for why she was lying. It wasn't. And these were just outrageous things. She was jealous of time he spent with, other kids or whatever, or she was just trying to get attention. Mm-hmm. She wanted his attention. It's like, what teenager gets an adult man's attention by accusing him of molesting her?
Yeah.
That makes no sense at all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and it turns out this guy was already on the sex offender registry. He had been convicted of statutory rape as a younger man. Mm-hmm. He was legally an adult. His girlfriend, we don't know exactly how old she was because she was a minor, and that information was redacted from any of the records. But she was under 16. And then at trial, it came out his own sister testified against him and said that he had engaged in similar behavior with her.
Good for her.
And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It seems like a good time to acknowledge, because people will, if anybody is watching this and questioning this, false allegations happen. I mentioned I've worked with an estimated 3,800 people who are survivors, and less than a handful of those, there was something about the situation that caused me to question.
Right.
One was a woman living in a group home, and she obviously was being I don't know if it was a false allegation or not, but she was very vindictive towards a staff person and said, yes, I want to get him fired. Mm-hmm. So just it's important to acknowledge that can happen. Federal statistics estimate that about 2% of sexual assault allegations or false allegations, the same as other crimes,
Yeah, I was gonna
like
say that's
robbery or murder.
in line with other crimes.
So what we don't have, we do not have a huge problem with people making false allegations.
Yeah.
What we do have is a huge incidence of sexual assaults that go unreported.
Right.
And part of the reason they go unreported is that the survivor knows they're going to be facing a very hostile environment
Yeah.
if they report.
Well, and I think this is a good time to bring up an email that recently came in because this guy emailed and he actually wanted to talk to either me or Tracy about this. Something has been bothering him about the Me Too movement, especially in light of the Kavanaugh hearings. And it seems like one of the central messages of Me Too has been that we should believe accusers when it comes to sexual assault and rape. And that's deeply problematic for him to accept because it's basically a form of dogma to believe accusers or will consider you to be sexist. And he says he generally supports the goals of the movement, but he's very concerned about this central tenet, and he can't think of any reason why sexual assault claims should be special in not placing the burden of proof on the person making the claim, despite the fact that he knows that's a terrible burden to bear for the victims, but he just doesn't see a way around it.
Me.
Yeah.
Me. I put a lot of thought into this. First of all, it depends on who's doing the believing. If your friend or family member or your child or your parent tells you that they have an experience of sexual violence, it's extremely important to keep an open mind, stay calm, and at least approach it with a good, in good faith, with an assumption of good faith. This person is telling me this for a reason. They're telling me this because they need support. The vast majority of times, the odds are 98% probably that person is telling you the truth. What does that person need from you? They need support. They need options. They need autonomy. To me, that's what we mean by start by believing. If you're law enforcement, your job is to keep an open mind. Your job is not to doubt them. Your job is not to jump to whatever they're saying is automatically true. But also, law enforcement's approach can be informed by what we know, that there's a 98% chance this person is telling the truth. The chance of traumatizing that person by being tough with them and disbelieving is something that's really risky. So, point one, it depends on who we're asking to believe. Mm-hmm. I want to say that something I actually have kept to myself and have been thinking it's time to make a statement about this, perhaps on social media. I'm a little bothered by saying we have to believe every woman, we have to believe everything. That can be very confusing. We have to believe every survivor. Yes, in general, believe survivors. That doesn't mean that without looking at the veracity of both or of all the people involved, or looking at evidence, that doesn't mean that
you still
we
want
need to
evidence.
just ignore.
Right.
We need to look at every situation with an open mind.
Right.
There can be false allegations. There could be politically motivated allegations. I went into watching this hearing, even though my bias is honestly towards believing Dr. Ford. I did look at it with an open mind and curiosity, and I found everything. We don't have time to go into it now, but everything about her case, you can Google it. I heard a prosecutor speaking about why he would have taken her case, the things that he looks for into whether or not a case can move forward. Those things were all present in her case. I found her to be compelling and completely authentic and credible. Kavanaugh, on the other hand, I think he may really not believe that night. That is not very convincing when the reports are that, if drunken groping and attempted rape of women was a thing that he participated in regularly, why would he remember this one? You know?
Right. Yeah, I was too drunk to remember is really not a compelling defense.
Yeah.
Or even a rebuttal.
Right.
Well, he says that never happened to him.
Yeah.
Also, not credible.
Right.
Yeah. The notion that women would do this to, quote, get attention is outrageous. What sort of attention? I don't want my well-being and those I love to be threatened. That's ludicrous. If you have one person that comes forward, 98% chance they're telling the truth, right? A second person, statistically,
Oh, yeah.
you are damn near sure that
Yeah.
person has been a perpetrator. Third person, that's it. Statistically, they are a perpetrator. That's the end.
Well, and that's kind of the point I want to get. These people who are hyper-focused on evidence and, these women that come forward and they claim to have been assaulted, there's no evidence. It's like, look, their statement is evidence.
Yay! Yes, that frustrates me so much.
There will be details in their statement that are evidence. And for all the women who are disclosing assaults in general on social media saying, hey, this happened to me when I was in high school, when I was in college, whatever, and they're not naming a perpetrator.
There's a good reason.
Yeah, there's a good reason for that. They don't want to make a formal report. They probably had good reasons for not reporting it when it actually happened. But they're adding their voices to this. And if you're going to discount all that and say, well, I just don't believe those people without evidence, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah.
You kind of miss the whole point of the movement.
Yeah.
Which is that this is a huge problem of women not reporting it because they don't feel safe. And if you're one of these guys who's hyper-focused on some kind of corroborating evidence of multiple women on social media disclosing, hey, these things are common, this happens to me, you're part of the problem.
Yes.
You are contributing to rape culture, and this is why women don't report.
Yeah. And the men who are afraid because, oh my gosh, that they might take me down next. Welcome to my fucking world.
Yeah.
Women have put up with this shit. We live this shit. My poor husband over the past few weeks has heard all sorts of stuff. Somebody on Facebook has it out for me. They have turned me in for being a fake account a number of times just to keep me from talking. I don't know how many people put up with that.
Goodness.
It's because I'm a woman. There's no other reason.
Yeah.
We put up with this shit all the fucking time. Go cry someplace else if this is scary for you.
And this idea that it's open season on men and that you have to worry about a false allegation.
Only if you...
The overwhelming majority, and by that I mean almost all men, will go their entire lives and never be accused of sexual assault or even misconduct, okay? Among the very small percentage of men who are actual rapists,
Yes.
very few of them will ever be held accountable for their behavior. So all of you out there, and an even tinier number of men will ever face a false allegation. So, yeah, go cry somewhere else. Not interested.
Yeah.
You're really not under threat. And the thing is, if you're worried about some woman claiming that you sexually assaulted her, maybe you need to take a look at your own behavior with women. There might be a problem there.
Yep.